Welcome to our fireside chat with Comcast. Today we'll be using a bring your own fireplace format. My name is Tom Garrity. I'm the Director of Solutions Engineering at Split. I'm fortunate to host this discussion with a few members of the Product Analytics and Experimentation team at Comcast. I'm excited to dig in and learn about how Comcast uses data to drive their decision making. First, let's take a minute to meet our guests. Menghan, please tell us a little bit about yourself and your role at Comcast.
Sure, Tom. And hi, everyone. My name is Menghan, and I've been at Comcast for a bit over 2 years. I am the lead for self-service analytics tools and data platform strategy. My background is in early stage startups abroad, and I primarily worked in customer experience and ops roles with a systems practice lens.
Cris, over to you.
Hey, everybody. My name is Cris Dizon. I run the product analytics, experimentation, and data science teams here at Comcast. I've been here for just over a year. And in my background, I have a lot of experience helping teams be more data-driven and essentially launching experimentation programs.
Thanks, Cris. Jim, say hi.
Hey, everybody. I'm Jim Forsythe. So I lead our product analytics and experimentation team at Comcast. I've been at Comcast for a little over 3 years. Before that, I was in management consulting, doing very similar things, helping big companies build big data platforms and understand how their users interact with their products.
All right, well, thank you all for joining us today. Jim, first question to you. So with the COVID-19 pandemic and so many people stuck at their homes, Comcast has become a much bigger part of their day-to-day lives. Tell us how the situation has changed the way you service your customers.
Yeah, our products have never been more important to our customers. Internet is critical. It was always important before, but it was more important for general entertainment and use. And now it's transitioned into a critical component of our everyday lives and how we work. And for many of us who have kids that are old enough or in school, those kids also depend on that for their education. So it is critical. So when we saw kind of this coming, which it was coming in phases of working from home, and as COVID and the pandemic progressed, we realized that this was going to take a big hit on our network. So the network team in itself stepped up and made sure that the capacity could be supported by our network. And us from a product development technology team and customer experience org, we wanted to make sure that our customers had good accessibility to the internet and it was reliable. So what the company really did was just it focused its attention. It didn't necessarily change, but it really took an extra step into making sure that our customers were happy with the performance that they were getting. We made sure that the minimums of that performance were adequate for what they needed. And I'm really impressed with the way that our company responded. Our team in general, we also stepped up and made sure that all the teams that we work with and support, that they had access to critical metrics around like the capacity of their platforms, the overall network, and they had real-time dashboards and reports that gave them that transparency into indicators of potential problems and negative customer experience that they could mitigate those problems, make sure that our customers had the great experience.
And I'll tell you that we all really appreciate it. We are so dependent. Jim, staying with you for this next question. Can you tell us about the data strategy at Comcast and how you use data to drive decision making?
Sure. Yeah. Comcast is an enormous company. So I will say this isn't fully representative of Comcast as a whole, but definitely representative of our product and technology board. For us, obviously, data is critical. Understanding how customers use our products, how they use our services, really helps us better understand their voice. And we use data as that voice of the customer at scale. So the goal for us is to interpret that scale and understand how people use, obviously, our products and how we develop them. And we offer advanced analytics, experimentation, and really democratizing the insights to our organization. So the way we set that up is a combination of different things. So we support a platform and overall platform capabilities. We put tools on top of that to make it easy to use. And we have some professional services, for instance, like centers of excellence, as well as embedded resources. But really, the cornerstone of all of that is how we democratize the insights, and we really make sure that we focus on how we support and give people access to our platform in a self-service manner. Um, so we want to just really make sure that we're empowering our overall team and individuals and not bottlenecking them to insights. But Menghan kind of leads that effort. So Menghan, maybe you can add a bit more color there.
Yeah, definitely, Jim. So I think to build off what Jim was saying about our goal being really to democratize insights, one framework that is helpful to just talk through what it actually means is just thinking about who are the people we need for in order to implement the strategy, what are the processes we need, and what are the tools we need. So I'll start with people first. So when we work with our stakeholders, and that can be folks within product engineering, the business, we really approach our relationship as one focused on getting them to be independent of us, so to be able to self-serve and to be able to collaborate with one another. We do a lot in terms of learning and development around how to use their data, how to interpret various data points or metrics they're seeing, as well as how to storytell using their data. In terms of processes, we aim to build processes and norms that reduce our team as the bottleneck. That includes teaching our users how to get support or how to self-learn, how to run experiments, and as I mentioned before, how to interpret their own data. And lastly, in terms of tools, Jim talked a bit about some of them, but really our BI and analytics tools are very low code, and they really enable self-service. Our A/B testing tools like Split do as well. So there's more of a focus on how do I actually see my metrics and less on how do I actually use these tools.
No, that is great. Menghan, can you tell us a little bit about how you partner with the product and engineering teams?
Yeah, definitely. I'll talk about maybe like a few things. So one of them is like when we partner with them, we aim to put the ownership for data metrics on them and not on our team. So what this means is we generally work with our product owners in a collaborative manner. We act as guides to them in order to get them to understand their data and determine where they want to focus in terms of their own metrics and data strategy. One way that we really try to do this is I'll say, to normalize rituals around what it means to talk and use data. So when we're working with any of these stakeholders, we really try to avoid jargon. And the questions we generally ask are we, when we're talking about monthly active users, say, are we naming the metrics the same way? Are we actually talking about things that are defined the same way? Other rituals that we really try to encourage our like product teams, our engineering teams to follow is, are they regularly accessing the same dashboards? Are they routinely reviewing it in the same way? And lastly, I kind of mentioned this before, the focus that we really want to put is on the data and not on the tools that are used. And obviously Split is a wonderful tool. It really enables us to do this. But really, I think by having access to like this very large and user-friendly toolkit, users are able to, go and see their own data.
And Cris, do you have any other thoughts to add on teaming with product and engineering in the business?
Yeah, I mean, just expanding on the concepts that Menghan was talking about, empowering all of our different product teams that we work with is key, right? We do have analysts and data scientists that are embedded with the teams. They work with them on a regular basis. But like having, I guess, the general analytics, like maturity of the organization be really high is great, right? And so that allows us with, a smaller team than the teams that we service to actually focus on if it's key initiatives, very strategic projects, and also kind of identifying, key areas or levers that we can pull to like help them hit their goals using like advanced analytics. So it's really kind of cherry picking like where we spend our time because a lot of the product stakeholders are already so fluent with data and the tools that they're using.
All right. No, that's very helpful. And Cris, as we've talked a bit about product, we've talked a little bit about data. How does experimentation fit into what your team does?
Yeah, I mean, excuse me. Experimentation is in the center of it all, right? It's kind of like the heart of being data driven, and building that data driven culture that is democratized and that everyone can participate in, right? So a lot of what we do is metric strategy with these teams, which kind of helps them figure out like what are the key objectives for your product or your features, and how can you actually move those. And experimentation is the way for them to kind of test the waters, play with certain experiences, and then see if what they're doing is actually moving the needle for what they're actually being held accountable for. And trying to work with product and engineering in a way that they become more iterative, right? And so you can run more experiments instead of a big bang or a full feature launch that you've been working on for 5 sprints or 4 sprints, right? Can we do smaller experiments that inform what that feature is and evolve it over time? So really, experimentation is the center of what we're trying to do, and what we're starting to get really good traction on with our product teams.
That is very helpful. Thank you. Jim, I'm going back to you. You've chosen Split as a partner. Thank you. Can you tell us what made it a good choice for your platform needs?
Yeah, well, thank you, Tom. So obviously, it's no secret these days that the industry is moving towards how fast can you move and how quickly can you build and iterate on software. So it's really moving around that development and release cycle and how many can you get within a period of time. So moving fast and bringing new features brings additional challenges to organizations of how do you do that while not impacting customer experience and continuing to run smooth. How do you make sure that you can develop those features and, like Cris and Menghan mentioned, they actually have an impact, and understanding that impact without asking data scientists, data analysts, et cetera, to run this huge study around the correlation of the thing that they're doing to this ton of other metrics. At the end of the day, by the time you generally develop that analysis, the team has moved on. So we really wanted to mature and dive into that agile iterative development. So Split's feature flagging and experimentation platform really helped us think through how are we going to develop that software quickly, how are we going to do this safely while being able to measure the impact. And when we were assessing, we were really looking for a partnership. So in working with your co-founders, they gladly sat down with us and probably showed us a bit more than your average customer and let us kind of look into the details and see what was behind the scenes. And we were really excited to see that a lot of the knowledge and rigor and practices that they were using were very similar to the ones that we were using in place already today within our platforms. So what that really helped with was just bring assurance to us that this was going to be a good partner and a good working relationship. And it really aligned to our customers, which are product teams and engineering teams, and really helped focus on solving those problems and supporting those needs. One additional point maybe is we are a pretty big company and we do have a big data problem. And we were glad with your help, Tom, to get the S3 data integration prioritized on the roadmap. And that's been a really great feature for us. So overall, it just ended up being a really good fit.
Yeah, it's been a great partnership on both ends. So again, thank you. So changing gears a little bit, Menghan, give us your thoughts on any best practices, recommendations you can share with the Split community.
Definitely. One of the things that we've been focused on here at Comcast for the past year or so, I'll say, has to do with building up communities of practice. And what I mean by that, and I think what really led us there is with the pandemic and with all of us being apart and working remotely, I'm sure a lot of us were thinking about how do we maintain that sense of connection with our team, with other people that we work with just within our company. This led our team to think a lot about how do we transition the community that was already forming around experimentation and data online in a way that really makes us more cohesive and makes us more collaborative. We took a lot of lessons from MOOCs. So think about your Coursera, your edX. And obviously there's a lot of benefits of like having your materials, having your tools, having your resources online. It's very easy to share. It's really easy to scale your community. In addition, we also thought a lot about what can we do to get members of this community to really buy in. So how do we give them an identity or role within the community, just as members of like these edX courses might have like roles within each of their courses. So a few of the lessons that we learned and that we definitely want to share, one of them is around building an inner circle. So for our self-service analytics tools, this really means power users. If you train the trainer, they go on, they train other people. With us being a fairly small team, I'll say, we just create more evangelists, more trainers for data culture, the data community. Another, I'll call it a ritual that we've really focused on is initiating. So how do we initiate users into this data community? A lot of it has to do with building very strong onboarding resources. So doing, I'll say, a lot of hand-holding at first, laying out what the norms are for how do you get support, how do you storytell with data. And we found that after they've been initiated in a thoughtful manner, or as thoughtful as we try to be, they tend to stay and they tend to be members of the community that are collaborating, are helping others. And the last lesson learned that it's one of our focuses for this year is how do we get our community members to better share stories around data? So what Jim was kind of explaining at the beginning about the impacts that our team has really had around providing critical metrics to Comcast at the beginning of the pandemic, right? There's a lot of these powerful stories that I'll say neat pieces of analyses that users have done or like people have been able to produce with tools like Split that aren't really shared. And by sharing them, it really creates more of a sense of community. Again, you're doing a lot of knowledge sharing. It just strengthens your community and it strengthens the data culture at Comcast. And I'll paraphrase a quote from a book that I've read called The Art of Community. And the quote is, "The community feels more like your community because you've given a piece of yourself to it." So by doing these rituals, like by telling stories, by doing collaborating, it also strengthens our data culture.
All right. Cris, do you have any other thoughts for the community, especially around building a community? It's one of the things we're really focused on here at Split.
Yeah, and all of what Menghan kind of talked through is like really important, especially for experimentation, right? It's not for a lot of our teams. It's they're maybe have a good understanding of like how to use data, but experimentation sometimes can be an intimidating topic, especially if you've never done it before, right? So like building that community, providing training, and having our stakeholders be comfortable to come to us and ask questions is like really important. And so that was one of the things that I think as we were kind of really getting started and starting to scale our program is that we identified that we need to focus a lot of time on. How can we democratize the capability and get to the point where we want to get to, where we're running thousands of experiments, concurrent experiments at a time, and be able to actually scale. So getting our users super familiar with like Split's UI, understanding the training so they can understand the basics of the analysis and the methods that go into analyzing experiments. And also, how do I run sample sizing calculations so I have a better idea of how long my test needs to run so I can plan with my engineering team and so forth. So a lot of that training and kind of like reinforcement through some of the methods that Menghan talked about was key. So one example might be office hours, right? So, our team might have office hours where anyone can come in, no agenda is needed, just come and ask questions and we can hopefully answer them or schedule more time to dive deeper.
Yeah, and I mean, hopefully as you said, you create those champions, you create, a center of excellence and it just can build on itself. And it's it's a transformation for a lot of our customers. And I think, it's you guys have some great ways of driving it. All right, so we look forward, and we're in a hopefully a much better new year here. What makes you excited about Comcast and the business in 2021? Menghan, we'll start with you.
Sure. Yeah, and I'll speak specifically to, I guess, data and data strategy here at Comcast and within our team. So one thing that I'm really excited about, and it's kind of a theme that is like for our team and also for Comcast, is our shift towards thinking about data and our team as a platform. So to what Jim was and Cris and we're all saying around how do we further democratize data, I think the next step for us is to think about how do we create these common horizontals that help support even more scale. As an example of this, I think that this means not only like providing self-service so that our team, so that users outside of our team know how to use our data products, but also empowering teams outside of our team to build their own data products. So they can use Split maybe directly without having a lot of our environment. And that applies to other self-service tools that we support as well.
All right. Cris, what about you? What excites you for this year?
Yeah, I think this coming year, I'm really excited that this culture of data that we're driving is catching on, right? So expanding the practice of data science and analytics to more teams and in a more, I guess, like complex way is exciting, right? And of course, all of that kind of ends with, or should end and begin with, experimentation. So starting with more, I guess, simple or basic experiments, and then kind of transitioning to more complex experiments. We're getting into like multivariate designs and other more, I guess, advanced ways to analyze the data. So I'm really excited about that. And there's just a lot of opportunity now that we're starting to get our Split integrations with all the different teams that we service to impact the customer experience across all of our verticals. So within entertainment, within our core internet and Wi-Fi service, and then also kind of when those paths cross. So I think that's just really exciting in general, just to kind of expand our reach and expand the number of people who are and teams who are using our services.
All right. And Jim, what are you looking forward to at Comcast this year?
Yeah, this year is quite an exciting year. Last year was a great year. Despite the pandemic, we had a super successful year in terms of like our company overall, as well as our team. Had a lot of growth in the team, which has been great. I'm super excited about like our partnership with our product and tech organizations. A lot of things that Cris and Menghan talked about. We're directly working with all these teams, and they need more data. They want to make decisions based on data and facts. So I'm super excited to work even closer with all of them. And a couple of the really like cool products we have that we've been working on have been coming out, are growing pretty rapidly. An example being Flex. You can come, and if you have our HSD service, you can bolt Flex right on. It's free. And you get a very similar experience to what you would with our traditional X1 customers, which you just lose a bit of like the linear content and some of the live, but all of your favorite apps are right there in front of you to use. And we have our fantastic Grammy-winning voice remote right there to find your favorite content. So we work a ton with that team, and I'm really excited to continue to work with them and branch out even further into working with other teams too.
All right. So as we wrap things up here, let's look outside of Comcast, and we'll go to each of you. But what industry trends excite you? Menghan, you're up first.
Sure, Tom. Let's see. So I think one trend that really excites me has to do with seeing data analytics more ingrained in like the tools, the like media, and just everything that we interact with. I guess to squeeze some or to make some lemonade out of the lemons that the pandemic has given us. Before the pandemic, I would say that the closest that like us as society or like as customers were to data was really through maybe looking at like stats that pundits would give us about the election or around sports. And maybe the most in terms of like data driven decisions we were making had to do with fantasy football or fantasy sports. But now with the pandemic, I mean, we're seeing data everywhere. We're seeing visualizations, metrics about infection rates, all of that. So we're truly closer to the data. And I think as an effect or as a positive effect of that, is that we actually understand what it means to make data-driven decisions.
Oh, I'm excited about that. All right, Cris, what about you? What trends are exciting you?
Yeah, I'm interested to see how there are all the companies that had to innovate because of the pandemic, right? So forced innovation, and so I'm excited to see how these companies who have created these new products or new ways of touching and impacting their customers, just as we all kind of look forward to things getting back to normal. Like, can they keep that engagement up? Do they need to pivot back, or have they actually really created new experiences that people are going to continue to use, as we move forward? So, like one example, would be, within our space, would be about, being able to watch content or movies or shows with friends and family, right? How much engagement is that going to have as people can actually go see their friends and family more often, right? Another example I was thinking about was, if you're thinking about all the dating apps, right? They start from a mobile experience to like an in-person experience, right? And they've all had to kind of pivot to keeping it all digital via like video dates and stuff like that. So, and even these new social media platforms like Clubhouse, where voice is now something where people are interested in interacting using their voice, whereas before everyone was pivoting to, like Twitter, right? Or you text, right? And the way you communicate there. So I think the trend that I'm excited to kind of see more into is that, do they keep these products and features moving forward? And then all of the analytics around that to kind of help them do that. So.
Oh, I mean, it is interesting, and I don't know, with a thick Boston accent, I'm always concerned about people trying to figure out what I'm saying with voice automation. Jim, what excites you about the future?
Yeah, I'll say what's been super exciting and just like seeing this, I'll say like market of like technology change over the years. When you think about, a handful of years ago, the best way that you had to set up like a various technology stack was really around like the servers that I can get and how many and what data center and how close am I to that, where it's pivoted to cloud with Amazon, Google, Microsoft, et cetera. You don't have to think about that anymore. So that like somewhat goes away. Now these companies are realizing, well, I can just build services natively into now this experience, and developing and deploying becomes really easy. Getting like machines and really high powered services in the cloud is really simple, and you can use them for, let's say, an hour and get rid of them. That's crazy. That was like not even a thought, many years ago. And obviously, like I was mentioning before, like software is just like rapidly developing, and people are creating new services to make things easy for people. So one of those to maybe highlight is just like the low code, no code options that are coming out there. To think that you can call an API and develop a voice recognition service or an image detection service integrated with like a camera you could buy off of Amazon that you could get funding for and scale into like a real service is crazy. So to think about just like what people can do these days, and maybe to kind of like what Cris was saying is like, what's next is there's been a bunch of people in their basement, let's say, during the pandemic, kind of tinkering. There's going to be some really cool stuff that comes out of it, and I'm really excited to see what that is.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think there's great opportunities with that low code, no code of saying, I grab a component from here, I grab a component from there, I put it together, and I have something new and special and unique. So, hey, I really want to thank everyone for joining us today and spending this time with the Split community. I really hope that the Split community gets value out of this. We had fun doing this, and enjoy the rest of the conference.